Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. It is 10 o'clock. I'll give everybody a few seconds before they're online with us. But thank you again. This is our second week of our 8-week virtual town hall that we talked about. Thank you all last week. I think we had a total of over 400 people join us last week, and I know that over 2,000 people watched our videos afterwards. Seems like last week about 30 minutes was a good length for everybody. A little bit longer than that seemed a little long. So we'll try and keep this to 30 minutes, but I want you to know that you can always Facebook us or send us a message. But last week we talked about job creation. I think we proved last week that our plan is credible. And we can create 225,000 new jobs to start our education, to start our economy. But we know the most important part about that is education. So it's time we start investing into education. We're in the middle of a court battle right now because experts are telling us we're underfunding our educational program by $600 million. Well, I think we can do better than that. So our educational plan that we're going to talk about today and that you'll see in the next couple of days on our Facebook page and our website, we've literally collaborated over 2 years with teachers, support staff, principals, superintendents, and yes, activity directors. We have brought everybody together to work on a plan that we know now today we have to educate our kids 0 to 20. So let's break that out. 0 to 4. We know how important it is to educate our kids and start from birth. My father in 1975 as governor funded year-round kindergarten for the first time in the state of New Mexico. And we know how important that was. But we now know we have to start investing in our children at birth. So we have a program from 0 to 4. 3 to 4-year-olds, every child should have opportunities in preschool. We will fund preschool programs, both in the private sector, both in the public sector, for every child in New Mexico. And we must create in-home programs before preschool, educational programs, parent training programs, early family intervention. Last year, 72% of our kids were born on some type of government assistance. 85% of them were minorities. The average age was 18 to 23. Folks, our children are having children. So we must work with them to make sure our kids get off to a better start. That's the start of everything within our educational platform. And that's what we're going to do. And then we talked about it. We're going to fund early preschool for all kids in New Mexico, both private and public, between our public schools and between CYFD. We can do that. But we also must fund 100% K through 3 plus. This is a program in our state that we know works. And this year, our governor literally cut budgets and funding from some of our communities. So we must, a third of our kids need it. So we must fully fund K through 3P. We know that program works. Now let's talk about our middle schools and after schools. We have moved so much money out of our schools and so much money back up to administration or out-of-state funding or higher ed that we have cut so many after-school programs and so many programs from our kids in our middle schools and high schools. Our kids are not staying engaged. In fact, look, I'll be very frank and honest. I was a football player. I was an athlete. What kept me engaged in high school at Santa Fe High was sports. We continue to cut the arts, the science, the coding, the computers, the music, sports. Our kids are not staying engaged. And they see two pathways, higher ed or minimum wage jobs. It's time we create pathways for our kids, for our middle schools and high schools. We're going to start them earlier, get them prepared so that 38% of our kids at third grade are reading at third grade level, are prepared for elementary and middle school. But we must create opportunities for our kids. Between 2015 and 2016, we subcontracted over 40,000 jobs in the state of New Mexico in trade skills. Today, our trade skilled workers, our union workers, are either working out of state, or most of them today are working at Facebook. So you can't get a construction job. Our construction jobs are delayed almost 6 to 9 months because of that. And we continue cutting programs out of our schools. So we're going to work with our union brothers and sisters. We're going to bring our apprentice programs and our union programs back into our high schools. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to roll those back into our high schools. And we're going to show opportunities within the trade skills, within coding, within STEM programs, within our nursing programs. our physician assistant programs. Folks, these are jobs that we need today. Between everything I just announced, we have about 75,000 jobs today that we literally could fulfill with New Mexicans over the next 2 to 4 years if we just give them the opportunity. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create pathways and opportunities for our kids. That's not what we're doing today. And we will fully fund and expand lottery programs for the community colleges and the universities. We understand that. But we must give opportunities for trade skills also, and for coding and programs like that to give our kids. Now look, we can talk about all we want. What we're doing today doesn't work. We're ranked 50th in education, and we always haven't been 50th. And yes, 27% of our kids live in poverty. Over 4,000 kids are homeless. That's a sin. That's sinful. When our state sits on $23 billion and we don't invest back into ourselves. And that's what we're going to change. So 37% of our kids drop out of high school. In some communities, as high as 46 to 50%. Because we haven't shown them opportunities. And that's what we're going to change. Our first step in our educational plan, we need to revamp our pay scale. Look, our teachers haven't had raises in 10 years. My kids, my twin boys that are 9, that you know, Asher and Gage, you've heard many stories about them. The 2 most important people in their lives next to my wife and I, Jackie and I, are those 2 teachers. And we continue to penalize teachers, punish teachers. Folks, that's unacceptable. So our pay scale now is going to be on educational experience and job experience. And our teachers are going to start getting paid at $43,000, $47,000, and $55,000 a year. And yes, everybody in the school system is going to get a 3% annual living increase every year. We need to do that for our teachers. We need to start paying our teachers better. And then we're going to incentivize our teachers over a 5-year program to help them get better educated, to create master's programs for them, PhD programs for them. So not only do they get paid higher, but they're also better educated teachers, which will help our kids. And by the way, there are already communities in New Mexico, Carlsbad, Hobbs, Artesia. Communities are already doing this. So the programs are already there in our own state. We just have to create them and fund them. We also have to create partnerships with our unions, our brothers and sisters, and bring trade programs and skilled programs into our high schools. We need to start creating mentoring programs, internships, fellowships for our kids. Look, in the Apodaca household when I was a kid, and yes, even when my father was governor, there was just one simple rule. If you're not playing sports, you're going to work. And if you're not working, well, you better be in school. And any activities you want to do, you better bring a 3.0. And yes, my parents were engaged. But we have to do that to our kids. We have to create opportunities, not only coding and telecommuting, but STEM programs. Those are funding programs that we need to continue to fund for not just specific charter schools or not just specific programs, but for every kid. And folks, we continue to break the law, our Constitution, by not fully funding dual language programs. Every kid in our state, from elementary to high school, should have opportunities to learn multiple languages. And we must do that. It's in our Constitution. We're literally breaking the law. We're breaking our constitutional law by doing that. Our teachers, look, we know 27% of our kids live in some type of poverty. We know the rural communities are hurting. We will create jobs for those opportunities. We'll create jobs for those communities across the board, as we talked about last week. But we must train our teachers, and we must give our teachers the skills to work with those kids that are the most vulnerable for us. So folks, whatever you say, it's always going to cost more in the state of New Mexico per child to educate our kids. We live in a rural community. So until we build up our economy, until we get our kids out of poverty, or 4,000 of our kids living homelessly, we know there are successful programs that are helping these kids. At Trisco High School, and I'm not going to say specific people, but we know who's at Trisco High School who's done a program, who's done a great program called Restorative Justice. Restorative Justice. Restorative Justice is a great program that helps impoverished kids and helps kids monitor themselves, but creates leadership and creates civic programs for them. And that's what we have to do. So we know there's programs out there that work. We just have to fund them. Now look, park. We know it's a nasty word. Only 4 states now, and we're one of those 4 states, continue with park. I think we've all agreed it's a failed program. So as your governor in 2019, you have my word, park will be eliminated. And the millions of dollars we spend on park, we will move back into New Mexico. Now look, I haven't talked to one teacher, I haven't talked to one superintendent, I haven't talked to one principal that's against evaluating our children or evaluating themselves and testing them. But it's time we start doing it together. It's time we collaborate together and do it from the community up. Look, these Bostonian tests don't work. In fact, last year, 33% of our kids in 3rd grade missed this question. Where do you see a boat? On the land, in the sky, or in the water? 33% or a third of our kids said on the land. Why? Because most of our kids have never been to the water. In New Mexico, where do you see a boat? Now, if you've ever been to Boston, it's surrounded by water. And that's just an example of what we have to do. Now, these are great programs. This is a great initiative, all developed by teachers, superintendents, principals, activity directors, the people that literally educate our children. So it's time we start listening to them. Now, I just labeled a bunch of things that, those are great programs. And I know some of you are out there saying, how are you going to pay for those programs? Well, let me tell you, you are correct. With teachers' raises, with some of the programs we want to do, we are looking at about $260 million more a year annually, with 3% increases in it. But when you look at what we do, PED, that's why we're proposing, and we will do this as your governor, PED, over $225 million stays at PED levels at the state level or goes money out of state. We can literally move $225 million of that money back into the communities, back into your schools, back into these type of programs to fully fund programs that we know exist or are successful. And then, folks, I have talked to over 10 funders of nonprofits that have over $300 million that want to help us in education, poverty, child hunger. So when you collaborate between the private and public sector, we have over $300 million a year that want to help us educate and improve the lives of our children. It's about collaboration. It's about working together. That's what our state's not doing. That's what Martinez isn't doing. And as your governor, I will work together. I've done it for 32 years with the private and public sector. I will work together to improve our educational system. I will make decisions best for our children, best for our teachers, best for our principals, not for a political career. And I will not bring the dysfunction of Washington to New Mexico. That has come for the last 8 years. It's time we invest into somebody new that has a plan, has a 225,000 jobs plan, and has a program that's going to educate and improve our kids and get us out of 50th. And that's what it's about. It's about Asher and Gage, my 2 sons. It's about the kids of New Mexico. Asher this summer, and some of you have heard this story. Asher, my 9-year-old, my 3rd grader, was one-on-one time with Daddy. And he tells me one thing. Daddy, when you're governor, can you just do me one favor? And of course, as a dad, right? No homework, more artwork. You know what he tells me? Daddy, when you're governor, can you have my friends stop leaving the state of New Mexico? It brought a tear to my eye. Still does. My 9-year-olds have lost 6 friends in the last 18 months because their families have left our states. My 9-year-olds know we're ranked 50th in education. My 9-year-olds know we've lost 140,000 jobs in our state. We have the highest unemployment. It's time we start bringing hope and change to our children and to our kids. And that's what our campaign's about. So that's our educational plan. I want to open up the questions, and we did get some early questions, so I want to answer one question real quick from Joy from actually Doniana, my home county that I was born in. And her question was, how will you pay for year-round pre-K for every child in New Mexico. I know it's a need, but but can we really do it? Well, I think we talked about it in our last statement, right? Absolutely, early education and some of our programs are going to cost us, and paying our teachers is going to cost us about $260 million more a year. But I think we showed that we can literally move $225 million from PED back into our communities. And then we know there's nonprofits out there. Now, let me also tell you, we have been talking about the $23 billion that we sit on and invest all outside the state. We will invest some of that back into New Mexico. Now, my opponents and the legislators are correct on this. For us to take the money out for education, we do need legislative approval. We do need to change the laws. And I'm all for that. And I believe Senator John Sapien has announced a bill that they're going to go after $53 million a year. So we do think that's an opportunity. And we're for that. So we would support that as your governor. Because again, we got to start investing back in New Mexico. But I think we also showed, besides doing that, there is plenty of money. Our legislators in the last 2 or 3 years have crawled back anywhere between $100 to $300 million back into the general fund that has gone unused in 3 different departments. So we know there's money there. Folks, in a $6.5 billion budget, we can find the money. We just need to allocate it the right way. So we don't need to raise anybody's taxes. You know, we do have $23 billion that we can use, right? And then we need to look at other ways and create collaborative ways. So we do believe there's ways to do that. The next question, will you support expansion of after-school programs? And that was from D. I don't know where D's from, but thank you, D, so much for that. Yes, I think we talked about that. Our after-school programs is a must. We must do that. We have created so many opportunities. You know, it's funny, I was in Las Vegas, New Mexico this summer, and one of the conversations, and I don't think it was a true conversation, but one of the conversations was going on was can you the combination of West Las Vegas and Robertson. And when I was there this summer, you know, it was brought up to me. You know, what do you guys think? And I just give you a quick example. Both schools have football teams. Both football teams have 50 players. So there's 100 kids in Las Vegas playing football, varsity football. If you have one high school in that school, in that town, you're not going to have 100 kids playing football. You might have 60. And I asked one simple question that no one can answer. What will be happening with those 40 other kids? And that's my point. We have cut so many opportunities away from our kids that our kids are not staying engaged. Our kids are getting out of school. You know, 37% of them are dropping out. Some communities high at 46%. So we have to create opportunities. So yes, we will fund after-school programs. We will fund and bring those programs back. We have to do it from the community up. Keep in mind, when I was a child, I'm 55, right? So I was a child back in the 70s, back in the 60s and 70s. Our elementary schools and our community centers stayed open for kids in our communities. We need to make sure we fund that. Now we have another question from Marlene. What about enhancing parent involvement in their kids' education? Marlene, great question. And in fact, you know what? I may not have said that, but in my early platform, I said we support early family intervention. Absolutely, Marlene, you're correct. One of our early child programs is we're actually going to go into the communities. There are already programs out there, so the state's not going to create a new program. There are literally programs out there that are very, very successful that we're going to reach out to the community. And I said earlier, 72% of our kids were born on some type of government assistance last year. 85% were minority. Most of them were Hispanic, Native American. So we need to reach into that, and we need to give the skill sets to our parents, to our young parents, to give them better opportunities and to give them the trained skills. Let me give you an example. My children went through a program called Kumon. Now, I don't know if anybody knows what Kumon is. It's a reading program. It's very simple, right? So our idea is, and I'm not saying we're going to pick Kumon, by the way, but there are 4 programs like this. Now, my wife and I were very fortunate where we could pay for our children to go there. But these are programs that literally take 15 to 20 minutes a day that your kids can read with your parents. And we started doing that at 2-3 years of age. Now, my wife, Jackie, she actually taught our kids sign language at birth. And I kind of made fun of it, but let me tell you something. What we did learn is not only did our kids not cry, our kids communicated with us. And then our kids started their motor skills earlier. So just those little things. Now the Kumon program, or those type of programs, we can literally bring the families together and give the skills to the families and how important it is to read and work with our kids from 0 to 3. Right? And then those kids do those programs by themselves. My kids would literally do the programs every 15 minutes. It's literally about 15, 20 minutes a day. And the parents can do it with the kids. And then we have to teach the parents, the young parents, how important it is to read to the kids. We have to engage the kids. And yes, some parents might engage their kids with electronics. We did it, right? It's hard not to in today's world. But the most important thing is we created programs, or we downloaded programs that were all educational, skill training programs, and that's what we have to teach our kids to do. And we have to work with them. So yes, Marlene, part of our early child program is to work with families and get them educated and get them the tool sets. And that's part of that $260 million budget. Don't get me wrong. There's another ad. That's part of our program. And what we're going to do is use community and schools. We're going to work with the business community and the community from the bottom up. And we're going to bring the families together twice a week. Example, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Come on over. We'll feed you. The parents will be over here, basically working with parents, working with skilled, trained teachers. And then we'll get high school and college kids and give them credit to their high school diplomas or their college diplomas. Remember, we talk about creating pathways to our kids that will basically help us educate our kids. Let's see. One more program. I think we're all angry. In fact, one of my opponents is calling me the angry candidate, right? I am angry. That's why we're running. I'm angry because we're 50th in education. I'm angry because we're 50th in job creation. I'm angry because we're losing jobs when everybody's gaining jobs. I'm angry because we pay our teachers the lowest. So yes, I think we just kind of laid out our whole program that we can show you how we will improve our tests, how we will improve our schools. And it's a proven fact. We have to engage our kids from 0 to 4, 0 to 5 to basically increase that. And then our kids, here's on a side note, when my kids were in kindergarten, I would literally go to our kindergarten teachers. And then I talked to other kindergarten teachers and I'd say, how can you tell? I mean, they would literally tell me that they can point to the kids that weren't going to make it. In kindergarten, when our kids are 5, they could literally point to the kids and say, these are the ones that probably aren't going to make it. And when you dig into those 5 kids, or to those kids in kindergarten, they were the kids that had no early family intervention, no early family programming, no preschools, no early family intervention. So that's what we want to fix. And we know that can benefit. Any more questions? Wendy is asking, what about Homework Diner? And yes, Wendy, that's what we're talking about, the early family interventions. I know, and I believe some of APS does this. Some of the programs, Las Cruces, some of the communities are already doing this. That's what I'm trying to explain to everybody. There are great programs. So Homework Diner, absolutely, and we can expand Homework Diner, but that's what we're talking about when we talk about engaging the families, bringing the families together. Let's feed the families, and let's just say Tuesdays and Thursday nights, right? Doesn't have to be those nights because some people have said Wednesdays and Saturday would be the best, but because some families don't have food on the weekend, and I'm not against that. But my point is we know Homework Diner, we know there are programs that are successful. I mean, I was talking to YDI. It's been a few months, and I've been talking to YDI, and they have a great program, great after-school program. What's the problem? And they tell me they have a 98% high school graduation rate within this program. What's the problem with the program? They touch about 375 kids. So how do we take that program that we know is a great program for specific areas, and we expand it to all New Mexicans? A dear friend of mine works for NDI, the National Dance Institute. I don't know if you know, it's a great after-school program. It touches 85-90% minority, Hispanic, Native American kids. And it's a program, and I'm probably going to brutalize it a little bit, but it's a dance program. It's a great program. I've been to many of their fundraisers. I've been to some of their after-school programs. But it's a program that they tell me they have a 95% high school graduation rate with the kids that are in that program. And I believe that program is once a week in their schools and then on Saturdays around the community, around the state. What's the problem with that program? They touch about 9,000 kids in the state of New Mexico when we have 80,000 that we need to touch. So again, I just gave you 2 examples of programs that are very successful that just need the funding. So if they're that great of programs, can we fund those programs and roll those programs out in some way in every school? That's what we're talking about. We have one more question, and we're going to try and keep this today. Last week we went to about 45 minutes, and we saw a bunch of people drop off right around the 30-minute mark. So we're going to keep it to about 30 minutes today and see how it goes. And again, you can always Facebook us. You can always send us an email. You can always track us at apo18.com, apo18.com, and ask us questions if we don't get to your questions today. From Lucy. It is Lucy, right? Yeah. From Lucy, how will you hold individual school districts accountable? I agree with you. But we talked about earlier, Park and the evaluation test isn't working. And we know that some of the funding is not getting back down to our schools and our communities. So we will work and collaborate with our teachers, our superintendents, and our principals. Look, folks, 20 years ago, when I was a kid going through this process, the communities and the superintendents controlled the program, not PED. And I don't know exactly when it happened. I think it happened about 16, 18 years ago. But we literally have given control to PED of educating our children. And for the last 8 years, we've had people within PED who have never had to educate a child, who's not been trained to educate our children. And again, let me go back to what I said earlier. Next to my wife and I, the 2 most important people in my children's lives are those 2 teachers of theirs, is that principal of theirs. And there's no way that you can tell me somebody from Florida, somebody from back east, who comes to Santa Fe for the first time and is going to tell my friends in Silver, my friends in Doniana, or in Anthony, or in Sunland Park, how to educate their children. What we need to do is we need to work with the communities and create an evaluation plan that we have with the teachers and the superintendents and make sure our schools are getting improved. But we have to give them the resources. That's what we're talking about. You're seeing that lawsuit right now going through the courts. They're saying we're underfunding our educational program by $600 million. Well, I can tell you right now, with our programs, we're underfunding it by $260 million. And that's what we're talking about. And I think that's where we need to create accountability. Now, one last thing, and I think we have about 2 more minutes, so I don't know if we have one more question or not. One last thing, and I don't know, we've gone back to research this. My father was governor, and I don't want to keep bringing my father up, but my point is in the 70s, when we've gone back and looked at the state budget versus today, we literally were spending 6%. Now today we spend more money because it's 40 years, but we literally spend 6% less on the state budget in education than we did 40 years ago. There's your problem. Look, education is always going to be expensive. Education is never going to be a moneymaker. But by investing into our children, by investing from the community up, by empowering our teachers, paying them a fair wage, empowering our principals and our superintendents in each community, and getting the money back into the classrooms, getting the money back into our teachers, and empowering our teachers how to educate our kids, evaluating our kids, preparing them for their pathways. And look, I'm sorry, and I'm a college-educated man. Not everybody wants to go to college. Not everybody has to go to college. So it's about investing into our kids and creating pathways and opportunities and holding each district and each community. But yes, folks, that's going to be the parents holding them accountable. That's going to be the superintendents holding them accountable. That's going to be the teachers holding them accountable. The business community. I've talked to too many business leaders in our state that has basically said, Jeff, we cannot grow our economy. We cannot grow small business. We cannot bring businesses here or C-level executives, as we call them, those upper management levels that we try to recruit here, because of our educational system. So we know community up works. It's time we start going that. Let's stop empowering the people at PED and let's empower the people that are actually educating our children. Now it's 10:30. We've gone 30 minutes. I think this has been a good time. I don't see any more questions coming in. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Again, we will post all our plan out. I know you see our jobs plan on apo18.com, apo18.com. I hope you like what you heard. This was a summary of our educational plan. We think it's the right direction for the state of New Mexico. This is how we turn New Mexico around. So I ask you, if you want the dysfunction of Washington to continue here in New Mexico, bring it here in New Mexico, I'm probably not your candidate. If you want government shut down, I'm probably not your candidate. But if you're looking for new ideas, if you're looking for big ideas, if you're looking for a governor who will come in and fix our state, turn New Mexico around by creating 225,000 new jobs, improving our education, then I think we're your campaign. And as your governor, you have my word. I will serve you for 4, hopefully 8 years. I will make decisions based on our children, based on Asher and Gage, where my sons will never have to lose 6 friends because their families have left our state for better opportunities. So next week, I believe it's film and television. Next week, we'll be talking about film and television. I'm a little biased. I spent 32 years in the entertainment business, building companies, turning companies around, building private and public partnerships. Next week, we're going to talk about film and television. Folks, it's an opportunity for our state. It's one of those verticals we're talking about how we can grow and generate jobs. But we're also going to invest into our kids. And we are going to invest into an international film school and train New Mexicans, Hispanics, Native American, and African American kids in the state of New Mexico and around the country, and be the pipeline for the new storytellers in film and television. So tune in next Tuesday at 10 o'clock our time. If you're up in Taos or you're up in the Taos area tonight, the fireworks will be a-flying. There's going to have a gubernatorial forum, and all 4 candidates will be there tonight. So I'm sure they're going to stream it live. If not, maybe we will. But join us tonight online on Facebook, or if you're up in Taos, come to the Taos Brewing Company for the gubernatorial forum. We'll all be there. And again, thank you for joining us today, and look forward to talking to you guys next Tuesday about film and television. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.